It begins with setting God aside in favor of things you might find more interesting and enjoyable. God is no longer first in your life. That leads to having an ungrateful heart towards Him, to the point that you seek your pleasure and satisfaction in ways other than God and His ways, which is really foolishness, because it ends in bondage to horrible sins that you never imagined yourself capable of, and consequences you would have been unwilling to pay when you first thought that you'd just have a little fun. But things like sexual sin, and really sins of any kind, are simply things that are made to look appealing by Satan, but are forbidden by God because He is a just and holy God, and because He knows just how much sin harms us. And sexual sin, as we're about to see, is a classic example. Satan makes it look attractive, but if we only fully understood the price we pay, we'd never give it a second thought. But like so many sinful, harmful lifestyles, sexual sin is deceptively peddled by the rock and pop industry and portrayed in such a way that the youth of today are literally being scammed and lied to, as sexual sin is glamorized and made to look incredibly attractive. Well, in what you're about to see, that myth should be dispelled permanently. And, after watching this next piece, the myth that secular music doesn't usually glamorize sin, and especially sexual sin, should also go out the window, once and for all.
Like so many rock stars that promote the lie that sexual immorality will bring happiness, Limp Bizkit frontman Fred Durst is actually miserable. Through his music and videos, he is leading the youth of the world into a world of deadly illusion. Durst admitted, "I play the pimp thing on purpose, like when I'm on MTV. These chicks are fanning and massaging me." He says, "It's not like I attracted them off the street. We blank hired them. I want everybody to be thinking I'm having the time of my life. But in reality," he says, "I'm, quote, single and miserable." Britney Spears emerged as the most celebrated female artist of the 21st century. Many parents felt that she was safe compared to artists like Madonna and Marilyn Manson. But is she really innocent?
I'm not that innocent. I'm not that innocent. I'm not that innocent. Go on and tell me how tight my skirt should be.
Sadly, Britney Spears' message to the young children is no better than that of the Spice Girls who came before her. Yes, Weekly said, quote, "She's still an eerie contradiction, a hypersexual Cinderella, trying to combine Disney innocence with a touch of old-fashioned smut."
We're monster riding to the music tonight. A clever way to get
As Spears sings about riding to the music and having a wicked time until the end,
a wicked time to the end.
she leaves little to the imagination as to what she's really singing about. She sings about dropping and flexing until they break down the door.
A double it till we drop. We drop. We'll flex tonight until they break down the door.
It's not surprising that Britney Spears' record company, like that of the Backstreet Boys, keeps some of her most explicit lyrics off of the CD jacket. God's word warns that those who sin sexually actually sin against their own bodies. The word of God states, quote, "Flee from sexual immorality. He who sins sexually sins against his own body. You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your body." Underneath the veneer of popular bubblegum rock lie millions of venereal diseases that teens are catching every year. The rock fanzine Cream admitted of rock bands, quote, "There's gonorrhea, syphilis, crabs, NSU, venereal warts, and herpes. I mean, you'd simply be amazed at the number of times one has to go to the VD clinic. It's almost a regular stop for some groups on the way to and from a gig. The wallowing through the muck and mire of sleaze is all part of the rock and roll lifestyle." Incredibly, that statement was made when times were tamer before the public advent of AIDS. So deviant are many rock stars that the deviant, flamboyant Elton John said, quote, "There's nothing wrong with going to bed with somebody of your own sex. I just think people should be very free with sex. They should draw the line at goats." Now, incredibly, every single day in America, 4,219 teens will get a sexually transmitted disease, some of them fatal.
We can get on the streets, do whatever we want. I used to sneak out all the time. Then there was times that I wouldn't come home at all. Yeah. There's so many ways that we can sneak around behind parents' back and do what we want.
Rockdale authorities and parents were utterly stunned when they learned about a widespread outbreak of the deadly sexually transmitted disease syphilis among their youth. Several young people were caught by surprise, as they had never learned that there were deadly consequences to their sin. Health authorities put together a chart diagramming the sexual history of the teenagers who had contracted syphilis in Rockdale. They were alarmed by the fact that the children's sexual contacts multiplied over and over and over again.
What we were told by a lot of the kids was that there was a lot of sexual activity with multiple partners, a lot of risky sexual activity. These girls were not just having regular intercourse, they were having every kind of possible sexual act that you could do. 20, 30, 40, 50, or 100 sex partners. You expect that of someone who is more into the line of being a prostitute or something. And these girls were not homeless. They were not abused in any way. These were just normal, everyday, regular kids.
Syphilis is a horrifying disease that actually eats away at the brain until one goes insane. There are 70,000 new cases of syphilis every year, and this number is climbing. One of the things discovered in Rockdale is that the youth were being influenced by perverse music that made sinful and destructive behavior look cool.
What's the typical age for girls to lose their virginity?
13, 14, 14. 13.
That's typical. Mm-hmm. What kind of music do you guys like?
Rap, R&B stuff. Yeah.
Like what?
Like Nasty, Mystical, Tupac definitely.
Tupac, I love Tupac.
What do you like about rap?
The beat, and the beat, and the bass, and it's just like loud,
Get up and down.
and the way that it's like they can talk about something that's like completely stupid, like drugs and stuff, but it's the way they put it that sounds interesting.
Give me an example.
Think of the song. Oh, take 3 bitches and I put them in a line. I take 4, 5, 6 and I blow them in his mind. It'll take one more before I go to mine. My 7 bitches get f***ed at the same time. So eats me, son, she all eating their mom. Said she never done it. She said she never tried. Selling a how many licks does it take to make my dick split? How many licks if the bitch is a good trick? And you can talk to the bitch and get how many niggas talk to the bitch and get this me? A pimp that you never saw. Now how do you say menage a trois?
That's about group sex.
Yeah.
Is that something that anybody does around here?
I know some people.
Yes.
I know a lot of people.
A lot of people do stuff like that. Just experiment. Like,
Riding the train?
say there was one guy here with us. This is our man, okay?
And this is a man.
He sleeps with me first. We get done. He sleeps with Bridget. They get done, and then he sleeps with her. And then they get done. And he'll probably come back to me.
Oh, there's
stuff like that. All right,
male,
look, this is the girl. I mean, this is the girl. This is the guy. She's on him. And he's on her.
That's a threesome.
I know, but it's also riding the train.
How do you guys know about this?
I heard. This is talk. Everybody talks.
Everybody talks about it.
Sadly, the same artists who influenced their fans to live destructive lifestyles later mocked their fans for getting diseases.
Tupac definitely.
Tupac, I love Tupac.
Yo, you look like I need your. Yo, them young disease-carrying hoes, all them young white broads.
How you know they got disease, man?
Cause they been passing this around like they was papers.
You cuss
Never. Cause I don't with them. I don't with them whores. Gamu, you know which ones is passing around.
Thank God many people are learning before it's too late, before they end up in hell, that they can turn from their sin and be saved through the power of Jesus Christ.
I lived mostly an asexual lifestyle through junior high school. Had fantasies. Fantasies included a little bit of both ways. But I figured that's just a passing routine and not to let that hook me. But I made a mistake because I had been so well taught that God was a God of grace that I could just about go out and do anything I wanted, and God would, if it were wrong, God would forgive me. Well, obviously today I'm paying a price for something I did that God definitely warned me I shouldn't have done. And that's why I need to make a message here.
It has to be clear to you by now that Satan will use any lie or scam possible to deceive you and suck you in. And if there's any confusion who the players are in this game, who's on God's side and who's on Satan's side, the Bible gives us remarkably clear directions. Jesus said, "He who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters." Those are Jesus' own words. And so for the Christian who is struggling to draw the line between good music and bad music, Jesus makes the line very clear. Are the people in question with me? Is their music worshiping me and designed to draw people to me? No? Then they are, said Jesus, not only against me, they're scattering the work that I'm doing.